In the spring of 2003, I was diagnosed with a terminal condition for the first time in 50 years. The Southeast Region U.S. Track and Field Association Masters Championship, and I won.
Welcome to this episode of TAC Tic Talk with Dr. Gilles, not Gilles LaMarche. Dr. LaMarche, his reputation precedes him. I mean, he is the showman over the years. That's how we've come to know you, right, Dr. LaMarche? And so we're happy to have you here joining us. I'm Joe Bush with the American Chiropractor magazine, Jacqueline Toussard as well. Dr. LaMarche, why did we invite you today to do this podcast? What exactly?
That's not really fair. Jill, tell us a little about yourself.
No. I like to see Jill sweat a little bit, but he's already sweating a little bit.
Well, I think I'm never afraid to do podcasts because it comes very naturally to me to have these conversations. And I think it started when JR and I had a conversation about my athletic endeavors in the last couple of years. I believe that's what you want to talk about. Am I correct?
Well, that's definitely important for us. I mean, you've got so many facets to you that I want to talk about them all. But okay. So yes, I mean, absolutely. You're the athleticism and you're running after the history that many know about you, but not probably all of our listeners, about, you know, your heart condition and what you had gone through during that time. And now you're doing some running and you're competing at one of the most high levels in this sport. Can you talk a little bit about those topics?
Well, I'll give you a brief history because maybe some of your listeners don't know me and don't know anything about me. I am from Northern Canada. I practiced in Timmins, Ontario for 25 years. In the spring of 2003, I was diagnosed with a terminal condition. And of course, the word terminal means it's going to end. And I believe them because I was having major issues breathing. And having been a chiropractic patient, practice member, or so I thought, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute, I'd been under chiropractic care since I was 12 years old. So when I started having these difficulties breathing, all I could think of was I must be allergic to something, because they say you can develop allergies as you get older. So there I was 48 years old, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm allergic to. And one day, one of my assistants comes to me, and she's got tears in her eyes, and she puts her hands on my shoulders, and she's shaking, and she says, Dr. LaMarche, I'm so afraid you're going to die in front of me. I was like, what are you talking about? She said, listen to yourself breathing. You sound terrible. And she said, I don't want to be disrespectful. You look terrible. Like you've aged 10 years in the past 6 months. There's something seriously wrong with you. And as a typical male, I think Dr. Joe could agree, I tried to justify my position. No, I'm okay. I'm just trying to figure out what's happening, blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, as Dr. Joe, you know, your sister's sitting beside you, much smarter than you. Like all the women are smarter than us. I knew that. I have 3 sisters, so I knew that from way back. She called my best buddy, and at the time we'd been friends for at least 30 years. And he's a medical doctor, and she convinced him to get me to his office. And I'd not been to a medical doctor in decades. And so he called me that night and said, hey, if I had made a promise to someone, you're the only person on the planet who could help me fulfill my promise. Would you do whatever it takes to help me? I said, yeah, of course I would. That's what friends do. He said, great, I'll see you tomorrow in my office at 4 o'clock. And he literally hung up the phone. He knew I didn't see patients on Tuesday. This was a Monday night. So I ended up in his office, and I got diagnosed, I'll shorten it, with primary pulmonary hypertension. Was the primary diagnosis, which means back pressure from my lungs into my heart. In the chiropractic world, as we well know, this human body has this amazing ability to adapt. So my body had adapted to that for probably years, maybe a decade, maybe more. Nobody knows. And in the adaptation process, it caused my heart to grow 2.5 times its normal size, which is called cardiomegaly. So that was a secondary diagnosis. And my symptoms started when there was no more room in my chest for my heart to grow any bigger. And so after multiple doctors, specialists here, there, Toronto, everywhere, they all gave me the same diagnosis. They all gave me the same prognosis. And they all gave me the same suggestion as to what I should do. Prognosis, you will be dead in 2 years or less unless you have a double lung and heart transplant.
Wow.
Like that was so outside my paradigm. They said, basically, your heart is growing 2.5 times its normal size. It's finished. And what's caused it to do that is your lungs. Therefore, we need to change all of these 3 parts.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So obviously I had researched the condition when I initially got diagnosed to understand it better. I researched everything about double lung and heart transplant recipients, and it's not great, right? I would have had no quality of life.
Right.
They said it could extend my life to 5 years.
Oh, wow.
If I did not, I had 2 years. If I went through all of this stuff, I'd have 5 years. And I thought, God didn't design me that way. I'm not doing that. And so I was totally okay with the fact that I believed I was going to transition. I mean, I couldn't do anything. By then, in those months that led to that diagnosis, because it took a number of months to get to the source of what they thought was happening, I had literally succumbed to the half-hourly use of Ventolin while I was in practice. It's the only thing that allowed me to breathe long enough to go take care of the next group of people for 30 minutes. And I'd been drug-free like all my life, at least from the time that I remembered. I never took anything. My mother never gave us aspirin. We just didn't do that stuff.
Right.
I'm sure.
How old were you at this time, Gilles?
I was 48 years old.
Holy smokes. I'm 47 right now. So I'm like, and in the grind like you were, right? Now you were a very successful chiropractor in Canada at the time, right?
Yes. So I saw a lot of people. And so anyway, I sat around I had 3 college-aged children. They were all away, like 400 or 500 miles away from home for college. When they came home for Thanksgiving, sat at the table with them, and I said, this is what's going on. And my best friend, my kids always called him Uncle Barry. His kids call me Uncle Gilles. We're just that kind of friends. And I said, this is what Uncle Barry says I have to do. And I don't really want to do it. And so I knew I was making the right decision to not go through it when simultaneously my 3 children expressed their opinion in the exact same words. All 3 of them simultaneously said, then don't do it, Dad. And I was like, did I just hear an echo, or did you each say that? They had each said the exact same thing. So I knew I was good to go. I found somebody to take my practice over, and I retired fully believing I was going to die. And I retired on the 14th of April in 2004. So from the time of the initial testing with my good buddy, it was about 11 months from not knowing to now I'm going to make my final preparations to transition. And I did all that, and I was okay with it. And interestingly, I didn't go through the phases that they say people go through when they get a terminal diagnosis. Like, I didn't go into denial. I wasn't angry. I just thought, you know what? I've had a really good life. And if it's the end of my life, I'm okay. My kids said, of course, that when you go, we're going to miss you and everything. But if you don't want to do it, then just don't do it. So the story changed 31 days later. On the 15th of May, I woke up. And I won't tell you the exact words that I heard in my head because they're not very nice or polite words, but there was like beep, beep, beep. You're an idiot. You've been teaching and preaching this chiropractic paradigm of health and healing for 25 years. There must be something seriously wrong with your spine and nervous system. And you'd think as a chiropractor, like, what a loser. Did you not think of that? Well, the second thought that I had was, well, how could that be? You see a chiropractor every week or two. My epiphany was in the third thought, but never the same chiropractor. So I was not a practice member in any practice. I got checked by my friends, right? We'd go out for lunch, we'd go out for a beer, or we go for dinner. Hey, do you want to meet at your office? You want to meet at my office? We can check each other and adjust each other. That's the kind of care. And all these other thoughts continue. And I was like, man, my practice members get better care than me. My team at my office get better care than me through no fault of anyone but me. Right? I was the one responsible. I never demanded. I never even thought about it. And what I've discovered in the last 20 years, I'm not that uncommon in the chiropractic world. The majority of my colleagues don't do what they tell their patients to do. And that was me. Here I thought I was being a genuine, authentic chiropractor, following what I told my patients to do, get checked every week or two kind of thing. But they were receiving better care than I was. So I was still in bed. Those are the days when we used to have phones hanging on plugged into the wall next to our beds. And I called my former office manager, Janet, who'd been with me for like 20 years. She was a high school friend, so we knew each other since high school. And so I said, I want to make an appointment as a new patient. And she said, oh, you want to come in and get adjusted? I was like, no. I want an appointment as a new patient. She said, why? You've been under care since you're like 12. And then I said, Janet, where am I at practice member? And it was like total, she was like, oh my gosh, Gilles, nowhere. I said, exactly. You get better care than I do. So made an appointment for a consultation, examination, x-rays, nerve scan, you name it, it all happened. Went in the next day for the report of findings, and we discovered that my spine looked pretty decent, cervical curve, lumbar curve, but I was a complete mess from C7 to T4, like serious major subluxations from C7 to T4 with total lack of symptoms as it relates to the musculoskeletal agenda. I had no musculoskeletal complaints whatsoever. I had subluxations that were interfering with my neurological function that actually was shutting off the energy going to my heart and lungs.
Wow.
Within 3 months, so for any of the nerds listening in, my pulmonary pressure was 57 millimeters mercury of pressure, supposed to be 15, which means the back pressure from my lungs into my heart was 4 times greater than normal.
Wow.
Within 3 months of daily, 5 days a week chiropractic care, my pulmonary pressure went from 57 to 27.
That's awesome,
like
man.
52, 53% improvement. Within 1 year, my pulmonary pressure was normal. Within 2 years, I no longer had cardiomegaly. Why? Because the body adapts to the stress. And when the stress was on my nervous system was gone, my body adapted again. So once my lungs and heart were receiving the amount of neurological energy that they need to function at their optimum, my body said, well, you don't need a heart that's 2.5 times normal size anymore. We're just going to let it shrink back down to its normal size.
Wow.
And so that's sort of the history. And then I thought, when I got well, I said, what do I do now? Because like I was, 50 years old. Like, what do I do now at 50?
50 years young, for everybody that's 50 years young, he meant to say.
Some people in this conversation are 50,
I was 50 years young.
Nothing wrong with being 50. 50 and fabulous. 50 and fabulous, Gilles.
I'll tell you, my 50 was much better than my 48. I can tell you that. And so I decided I was going to go back into practice. And a few days after that, I fell off a ladder. I broke 6 ribs, 3 of them right off my spine, 7, 8, 9, literally at the costotransverse junction with like a 0.5 centimeter separation. I was in bed for 3 months. I had plenty of time to think, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And then opportunities just started showing up. And I'd been speaking, obviously, in the chiropractic profession for, a couple of decades. Opportunities showed up there. All of a sudden, I ended up at Parker for a volunteer position for 3 months. I stayed for 6 years. I left there in 2012. I retired again. Dr. Riekman, who is the president of Life University, reached out to me in May of 2013. We moved here in September 2013, and I've been at Life University as the vice president, since 2013, so 11 years. And so that tells you that part of the backstory.
Yeah, thank you.
And then the story that JR was very enchanted with, and I think because he saw some pictures on Facebook. In July of 2022, I woke up on a Sunday morning, and it's like I heard the voice of God. I had what BJ used to call a thought flash, and I call it a God flash, but it was like, go to the track. And I was like, go to the track? Why? And it just repeated, like, go to the track. So my wife was up before me that day, and so I go downstairs. I said, I'm going to go to the track. She said, why? I said, I don't know. And I explained to her what I just told you. She was like, oh, okay. So I put on a pair of running shoes and a pair of shorts. It was July. It was super hot outside, and a T-shirt. No idea why I was going to the track. I went to the track here at Life University, and I started walking around, and it's beautiful. If you ever seen it, it's in a pristine space, like 3/4 of it is big trees. It's just beautiful. The birds were chirping, and it was just, and I remembered, again, I had forgotten how much I loved being on the track as a high schooler and first year college. So I ran track as a high schooler and first year college. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got that feeling like in my heart, like I'm like 17 or something. It just felt so good. So I get home and I tell Melissa, I think I'm going to start training, and I'm going to look for a master's track and field meet somewhere in Atlanta. I want to run one more competition in my life. I was very, very good in high school as a 400-meter runner. I ran a 48.1. So for anybody who runs, 48.1 is like really good. It's still good today. 50 years ago, it was really, really good. And I won tons of gold medals and had lots of fun. So I started training on my own, 3 days a week on our track, 2 days a week in the gym. And I was like, yeah, it's a little bit hard. During my third week of training, there was a man at the high jump pit training a young lady on that Sunday when I showed up there. And I guess he watched me train, but when he was done, the little girl was gone with her dad. He came up and introduced himself to me. And he said, what are you training for? So I told him, I'm a former 400-meter runner. And, I'm thinking I want to run a master's meet. He was like, oh, interesting. He said, I'm a former 400-meter Olympian from Jamaica.
Wow.
And he said, I'm a full-time professional track coach.
Wow.
Like, really? I said, do you have any master's athletes? He said, no, I've never taken on a master's athlete, but I'd love to take you on. He said, I watched you run. You've got great form. He said, we need to train you up. But he said, you've got good form. He said, I can tell I could train you. And then I was like, this sounds sort of fishy. I didn't know him. And then I said to him, well, when did you run for Jamaica? So he tells me the year, and my brain goes, dude. Dr. Neil Gardner, who practices in Kingston, Jamaica. I don't know if you've ever met him, but he was a Parker grad. So he was a student at Parker when I was there. And I was good friends. I was like, really? He said, those are the same years that Neil Gardner ran. He was like, Neil Gardner? He said, we went to high school together. And then I thought, okay, this is really fishy. So I grabbed my phone and I FaceTime Neil. Neil answers and he sees the two of us. He was like, okay, how do you guys know each other? Right? Because he's got this high school colleague from Jamaica, a chiropractic colleague from, 15, 20 years later. And we had a conversation and they ran against each other at the same high school. Wow. So he took me on, started training with him. And all I wanted to do is I wanted to run one meet in the summer season of 2023. That was my goal. By December of 22, he says to me, Doc, you're ready to start competing. I think you should compete in the indoors. And I think you'll do well. You'll have fun. You'll do well. And I was like, well, I'd already joined the U.S. Track and Field Association because that's how you can find where meets are happening. I'd found one in Georgia in August of 2023. So anyway, I got home, I went on the computer again, and I looked, and the Southeast region of the United States U.S. Track and Field Masters Championship was happening in Norfolk, Virginia in February. We're at the beginning of December. I was like, oh, what the heck? Boom, I pay my $75. I register, I rent a car, rent a hotel room, get myself a flight. And in February, I go to Norfolk, Virginia, 2-hour flight from home here, and I compete for the first time in 50 years, the Southeast Region U.S. Track and Field Association Masters Championship, and I won. And
How
I was
exciting.
like,
yeah.
I went, this is crazy, right? So I was super excited. It's not the medal.
No, it's
but
participating.
I was super excited. Well, they qualified me for the national championship a few weeks later in Louisville, Kentucky. So got home, told my wife, look at this, I'm going to go to the national championship. So I did the same thing, went to the national championship. Unofficially, I won. The guy who was in second place behind me was at least 2 strides behind me. But it was a very banked track, and I'd never really experienced that kind of indoor track. And I stepped on the white line twice in the first corner, so they disqualified me. But my time allowed me to go to the World Championship in Poland in like 2 weeks later. So I get home from Louisville. I said to my wife, I'm going to Poland in 2 weeks because I qualified and I made, because I'd never run, I ran provincially in Canada, but I'd never run nationally. It actually, I was allowed to make the U.S. team. So I made the U.S. Masters track and field team. And so they sent us all the gear that U.S. Olympic athletes had worn in Rio de Janeiro.
You got the swag.
So off I went like a proud member of the U.S. track and field team. And I didn't medal at the World Championships. Overall in the 400 meters, I was 12th, which, not bad when you think it's a pretty big, it's a pretty big pool of people. But I got tons of experience from it. And so I started competing in the spring and obviously through the summer season. And so I ended up in 2023, I won 9 gold medals.
Wow.
Now, the medals aren't important, as we all know. In the process of all that, the epiphany that came to me was, the next World Championships, because the indoor World Championships are every 2 years. So the next World Championships are going to be in Florida, first time ever in the United States in the history of those games, in March of 2025. I will turn 70 in February, and it'll be the 20th anniversary of when I was supposed to die. And all of that came into my mind. I was like, winning a medal at the World Championship would make this story newsworthy.
I love it. It is newsworthy.
Chiropractic, when they understood the 20-year challenge, the challenge that I had 20 years ago, and that at age 50, I was supposed to be dead. At age 70, I win a medal at the World Championship. And so I'm talking to my coach about all that. And he said, well, you know, you're getting really, really fast. I know you've only run I used to run the 400 and the 4x4. I'd run the 800 once in a while, but not often in high school. He said, let's train you because you're getting really fast coming out of the blocks. Let's train you to run a 200. So I said, okay. So in the summer of 2023 is when I competed in the 200 a few times, and I won gold again at the Georgia Championships. So I competed at the Pan American Games this July, and I ran a PR the competition was really stiff. I ran a PR in the 200, the 400, and the 800. I placed 5th overall in the 400, and I placed 6th overall in the 200 and the 800, and I had not run an 800 in 50 years.
Wow.
So I keep training, and the impetus that gets me out, like, I mean, I was on the track this morning at 5 o'clock, and I've been training like 5 days a week. Like, I've not missed. I've trained 5 days a week since August of 2000.
So what's your nutrition program like, Gilles? Is it like, do you have some kind of, are you taking supplements? I know I'm sure are they doing drug testing to you guys?
You succumb to everything that Olympic athletes succumb to. So interesting. You both know one of my great friends, Charlie. I always call him Dr. Charlie Dubois, who is the owner of Standard Process. At the FCA in 2023. Yeah, so I've been training for a while. At the FCA in 2022, August, because I started training in July. He looked at me, we were chatting, and I was telling him, what do you? I just started doing that. That's what I want to do. He said, "Did you not think of talking to me?" I was like, "No, actually, I didn't." So Charlie is Standard Process is my nutrition sponsor. So Charlie sent me to the Nutrition Innovation Center at the University of North Carolina that he owns. And I went there for biometrics testing. I mean, all the testing they could do on an athlete, all the blood work, the poop work. I mean, everything. They did everything. They tested everything. And they put me on a nutritional supplementation protocol. I was a guy who would take, I was not a regular supplement taker, vitamin D sometimes, whatever. But I was not that person that was regularly supplementing. I've always had a really clean diet. I've never smoked. I don't really drink alcohol. A glass of wine once in a while, but I'm not a drinker. I've never done any drugs of any kind. So I was, I ate clean already, but obviously doing that added something to me. And then when Charlie's daughter Simone, heading the Possible brand, which is their commercial brand, we had a conversation, and she talked about this. The pre-workout drink that is a strawberry beet drink. So I started taking that 45 minutes before my workout, and I started hitting like literally benchmarks I'd never hit before. Like about
pre-workouts are amazing. Yeah.
4 weeks into doing that, I'm texting him. I was like, dude, like I just ran I just ran this. It's like the fastest time I've run, and I've only been taking this for like 2 or 3 weeks. And there's no way that just the training would have allowed me to decrease my time that much. So I went from a benchmark 400 meters of 2 minutes and 33 seconds was the first one I ran for my coach. Now, remember, I had to run a 48.1 in high school. That's what won me a gold provincially. So 48.1 seconds to 2 minutes and 33 seconds. So I thought, I looked at him, I was like, man, I really suck. He said, yeah, but you have to realize you ran that 50 years ago. And you haven't trained. You were training. You were just starting to train. You've got like 3 days of training in. So at the Pan Am Games, I ran a 1:11.65. So I've gone from 233 to 111.65.
Wow.
And the people that I've chatted with, some of them have been competing at the master's level for like a decade. They said, you're not going to hit your peak until you're 3 to 5 years in.
Wow.
I said, 3 years? 3 years would be perfect, because at the World Championships next March, I'll be 3 years plus a few months into my training.
Well, we're going to be watching. Sorry, Jacqueline.
And Gilles, I just wanted to mention, like, seriously, to hear all of this is an accomplishment in and of itself. But the fact that you were diagnosed, have you ever talked to the MD who told you that? Oh,
yeah.
And what did they
remember the GP was my best friend. He passed away last year, but we were best friends for 44 years.
How young was he? I'm sorry to hear of his passing. How young was he?
He was a little older than me. He was 74 when he passed. But we lived a totally different lifestyle. Even though we were best friends, he lived a medical lifestyle with drugs.
Right.
He enjoyed smoking regularly. He enjoyed alcohol regularly, but we loved each other. We were a different skin color. We were born in different countries. But every Christmas, the day after Christmas, it was dinner at Uncle Barry's. My kids grew up, dinner at Uncle Barry's on the 26th of December. That was our family time together. So we were family. We were different, but we were the same. And
Did
so
he
would
ever
say, well,
consider chiropractic after seeing your results?
He was a regular practice member in my practice.
Okay.
We didn't want to make any lifestyle change.
Yeah.
His children were regular practice members in my practice. His daughter suffered from terrible allergies. And, within a matter of months being under care, as I can't remember how old she was, teenager, or maybe 11, 12, 13 years old, something like that. Got completely well. I mean, to this day, has no issues. So, he understood the benefits of chiropractic care. I would say he referred hundreds of people to my practice, but he was never willing to make lifestyle change. I'd say, Barry, stop that. Yeah, I'll die of that or die of something else.
That's the thing. You get, as people get higher up the mountain, right? Usually it's kind of like about quality rather than quantity of life for some people. And for some of them, they'll be like, not without this or not without that. So,
yeah. Well, and the cardiologist, Jacqueline,
what's that?
He said it's a miracle.
Yeah. So
he didn't relate that to chiropractic. I had plenty of time to explain to him. I said, look, pull out a Gray's Anatomy, pull out a guidance physiology. Let's go through it. I want to explain to you what I know happened. By the end of about a 3-hour conversation, he's like, Gilles, it's possible, but I really think that it's a miracle.
Wow.
You were healed. You were healed.
This whole story sounds like a miracle. I mean, it sounds like you've been divinely inspired. I mean, without a doubt. Now, with regards to your pre-workout, what was the name of that pre-workout? Because it's got beets, right? Which have a high content of L-arginine.
Beets and strawberry. It's made by Possible. So if you go to possible.com, that's a subsidiary of Standard Process.
Right.
But it's a company that Charlie's daughter, Simone, runs. I mean, it's a commercial brand, so it's not a professional brand. Like Standard Process, you can only buy through a doctor's office.
Sure.
Possible, you can buy directly online. They've got great nutrition bars as well, which taste good and are good. So I use those. I like the cashew date one. They have another one that's strawberry. I think turmeric and strawberry or something like that. And then they have a chocolate. I think those are the 3 ones they have. Those are good. So I use those when I'm traveling or when I'm at meets, because sometimes those meets, you're hanging out at the track a long time because you've got to heat in this, you got to heat in that. Like at the Pan Am Games, my heat for the 800 was 45 minutes after my heat for the 200.
Wow.
So, I ran the 200, the best 200 time I'd ever run in my life. And then 45 minutes later, I'm running an 800. So you got to make sure you hydrate. And it was warm. It was in Cleveland and it was hot outside. So you got to make sure you hydrate. You got to make sure you feed yourself. So literally for me, during those days of competition, I'm literally 100% Standard Process and Possible. Like I don't eat a meal. I don't have a burger at a track. I don't eat any of that stuff. And I hydrate well. And, in the morning, I'll usually have a chocolate protein shake from Standard Process. That will be like my morning meal. And I'll have some with me at the track that if I feel like hungry, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll grab one of the bars and I'll just stay on my protocol all day long. And then I get back to the hotel room and I've got Normatec boots. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but I put my Normatec boots, I blow them all up for like 30 minutes to take the pressure out of my legs. And take a bath, chill out. And
the compression, right? So I'm going to have to get the pre-workout because sometimes I'll take it like before I see patients, you know, like I feel like it's an event, you know, so it's like, so I'm going to use some of these tips.
It tastes good. It's strawberry beets. It's easy. It's in a single serving pouch. I dump it in 8 ounces of water. I shake it, drink it. So now what I do is I take it on my way. Early in the morning, I have like about a 10-minute drive from home. So I'll drink it in my vehicle. When I get here, I got about a 30-minute warm-up. So by the time I start doing my running training, I am, moving forward very, very well, and my body's well hydrated, and I feel like that sense of urgency and energy to move forward. I don't know if you met Dr. Mike DeBoard at the FCA this year, but Mike is the guy behind the company called B3 Sciences. And
niacin. Yeah.
They use blood flow reduction bands.
Okay.
So you can look at BFR technology. Blood flow reduction bands, I use them on my legs when I do some of my leg workouts, and then I use them on my arms because, of course, as a sprinter, your legs can't go any faster than your arms. And if your arms get really, really tired, it literally slows your legs down. People don't think about that. There's the kinetic chain. We got to be moving this way. So I've been using these BFR bands for a couple of months now, and that, I believe, helped me do the PRs at the Pan Am Games as well. Because, my training escalates. But the fact that I did 3 PRs on the same meet the same week, that was almost abnormal, according to my coach. And I said, but I've been doing this as an add-on. And interestingly enough, my chiropractor is Dr. Dominic Federley, who is the director of the Neuro Life Institute here at Life University, literally right across the wall from where my office is, same building. And about 8 weeks ago, maybe 12 weeks ago, he measured my thighs to record it into my clinical record. And then we measured them again 2 weeks ago. And my thighs are up 6 centimeters in that period of time. I think about 12 weeks.
Wow. So that is awesome. Yeah. So the blood flow.
I feel it in my dress slacks. Yeah. I don't feel it in some of the leisure. I don't feel it in my leisure wear, but I definitely feel it in my dress. Like, oh, my legs are my pant legs are a little tighter than they used to be.
Right. You're going to need a whole new wardrobe. Now the BFR stuff, they're using that also for injuries, right? Rehabbing injuries, I think is originally, but you're using it for optimal.
It was initially designed to help injury recovery. And now they've been using it for performance enhancement, and it's all legal. So Dr. Mike was telling me he's been doing this for a number of years now. He's got 50,000 clients doing this.
Awesome.
And some professional athlete clients.
No, it's very hot in the market.
He name dropped a lot of big names. I don't want to repeat them because I don't want to make any mistakes, but he named dropped a lot of big names, and he had pictures with all these people. He said, Gilles, they're using these. So I started using them, and I love them. And I got a set for 2 people here on the campus. One of them is our director of our fitness center, and the other one is a veteran student athlete who is a marathoner. They both have started using them. And this is like a short workout with those things. It's like 10 to 12 minutes max every day. And then you take them off. So I often do my warm-ups with them. I'll do like 12, 16 set of stairs kind of idea from our lower field to our upper field at Life University, or I'll do the hills that leads from one to the other. And I'll get like this massive, massive burn in my legs. Then I release the bands. I walk around the track once or twice. The burn is completely gone. And then I go right into my heavier training.
Very cool. Well, look for that new technology for the patients, right? For all our listeners. And now another thing, everywhere you've gone, you've just put on some great events. And you've been there at Life for the last, I think you said 11 years now.
Yes, sir.
This October 3rd to the 5th, you have an awesome seminar that you're putting together there at the Life Vision Extravaganza, right?
That's correct.
Now you name dropped earlier. I think you have some names that are going to be on that schedule as well. Can you tell us?
I'm just opening up my a text I got from one of my assistants, so I'll tell you a little bit about it in a second. I just want to get the data. I'm a data guy. I love the data. But yeah, we've got Dr. Joe Dispenza that's opening the program. And it is Life University's 50th anniversary, which is like a really, really big deal.
Wow.
And, you know, Joe doesn't do keynotes anymore, but we're good friends. And it took me 3 months to convince him. And he told another one of our good friends, he said, for Gilles, I just had to break down. I just couldn't say no. He said, I said no for like so many weeks. And finally he was like, okay, I just have to say yes. So we're thrilled to have Joe there. You know, we've got all sorts, you know, look at the program, lve.life.edu. lve.life.edu. We got great speakers across the board. It's being hosted at the Cobb Galleria Center, which is a beautiful event center here in Atlanta. And it's right next door to the Braves Stadium and everything that area called the Battery Atlanta has to offer, from restaurants to bars to, you know, good shopping, all that stuff. But just to give you statistics, as of September 4th at 15:05, so 3:05, I got this report from one of my assistants, and we were at 1,378 registered, total attendees registered. 1,208 of those are chiropractors.
Wow.
So we have 170 that are spouses of chiropractors. Some of them could be students. We never opened this event to students in the past because it's a post-grad event. Because we're at the Cobb Galleria, we have extra space. We've opened it to students. So we may have some students there. But yeah, 1,208 registered, 1,378 attendees. We've got, we're at capacity in our vendor hall at 80 booths. We're hosting our gala, our 50th anniversary gala on the Friday. We have 500 available seats for that. And as of that day, September 4th, a few days ago, we were at 404 seats sold. So it's looking really, really good. I'm really happy about that.
Sounds awesome. I was talking to my brother. I was talking to JR. He mentioned, because we're going to definitely go there. This would be the second year we're going to be at that event because it's been growing and emerging.
You're a media sponsor.
I mean, seriously, we love it. We're happy with it, and we can't wait. And JR's like, no, there's a Thursday night football game too. So it's like Atlanta Falcons. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to make the football game. I'm there for the event. But anyways, it sounds like a really good excuse.
If there's a Braves game, it's literally next door.
Right.
So you wouldn't have to get into Atlanta traffic and go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium to see a football game. You could actually go to a baseball game after our event if they have an evening game. And I haven't looked, so I don't know if they have it or not. I know last year during our event, the Braves were playing. So it's a busy area. They've developed that. How a tract of land that big was available, I don't know, for years and years, right at the intersection of two major freeways in Atlanta. And the Braves have basically changed the business of baseball by building a stadium and building hotels and condos and restaurants, which they own. They own all the real estate there.
It's incredible.
Well, now, Gilles, now educate me too, because I'm not familiar. Is the event taking place on campus or is it in a location off-site?
No, our event this year and last year, we moved it off-site to the Cobb Galleria Center.
Okay.
What I was saying is right next door to the Brave Stadium and that whole social gathering area that they've built, including a few office towers, a hotel. There's an Omni Hotel there. The Comcast has its headquarters there. Thies and Krupp Elevators have their head office there. It's a 50-story elevator testing tower. I mean, it's a beautiful area and so much to offer and a lot of fun. So when you come, you literally walk across from the Cobb Galleria, you walk across on a pedestrian bridge over the freeway to actually get to the Battery Atlanta.
Wow, it sounds exciting.
Yeah, it's a great destination. It's a great destination.
So we're gonna have to get tickets to the gala now too.
Oh, we'd love to have you at the gala because, well, like I said, on September 4th, there was.
I know. I'm hearing.
I think it's black tie. It's black tie, right?
Well, it's black tie optional, but of course, I know I will have a tuxedo on.
I know how you do it. I remember. So.
and the women, most of the women will be dressed in beautiful gowns or at least cocktail dresses. Right. We've got a cocktail hour. During the cocktail hour, we've got a roaming saxophonist, jazz saxophonist that's going to play. We'll have a string quartet that's going to play during dinner. We'll also have the Voices of Life Choir, Life University Student Choir. They're going to sing a couple songs, including the national anthem. And then we got an amazing party band called Party Nation at the end of the event. But also, during the event, we're going to honor the 50 years of Life University. So there'll be a tribute to Dr. Williams, the founder. There'll be tribute to the past presidents who've had their impact, have left their handprint, their footprint, their heartprint on this beautiful institution. So it'll be it'll be a wonderful celebration.
It's very exciting, and there are so many just significant contributors to the world that have graduated from life that I've only become recently familiarized and acquainted with. I mean, like, I didn't realize Dr. Dispenza
that is
was a graduate of life, and I'm always hearing like the Navy SEAL Team 6 guy. Every year I seem to hear, these just phenomenal personalities and people that have graduated through life, and very exciting, interesting time to learn about those people at the Life Extravaganza, October 3rd through the October 5th. You can find more information at fallce.life.edu and meet Dr. Gilles, talk about his running. It was awesome talking to you.